Welcome to another edition of This Fucking Guy, the series where we pick one fucking guy who is making America worse and explain why they suck. I'm Erin Ryan, host of Crooked Media's Hysteria Podcast.
And I'm Alyssa Mastromonaco, the other host of Crooked Media's Hysteria Podcast.
We've discussed fucking guys who were second in line to the presidency, fucking guys who humiliated themselves for Donald Trump only to be discarded like a spent condom, and even a fucking guy who died queen of the anti-feminists.
This episode, we're going to get into the life and times of a fucking guy who may lack direct political power, but makes up for it in influence.
We're talking about the head of the AARP brat pack, the patron saint of aggrieved rich prick manufactured victimhood, the heiress stepmom boarding school populist himself, Tucker Carlson. Perhaps we should call this episode This Tuckin' Guy in his honor.
Oh, Erin, a man whose face screams, "I am the eldest boy."
I'm the eldest boy!
And whose mouth says whatever it needs to say to keep his audience stupid and angry.
Tucker Swanson McNear Carlson was born in 1969 in San Francisco, California, a city he would later describe as a city in decline that had become, quote, filthier and more chaotic than Mumbai, India. His mother was a socialite with a hippie streak, and his dad was a middling newscaster named Dick. Thanks to his mother's social status, his parents were so well-connected and enmeshed in San Francisco society that his christening got 9 paragraphs in the society pages of the San Francisco Chronicle.
Tucker in a long white dress must have been a sight to behold. He's so fashiony. White dress preceded the bow tie era.
Of course. That September, Dick, then a freelance writer, got in trouble over a piece he'd written for Look magazine accusing San Francisco Mayor Joe Alioto of being deeply involved with the mafia. Alioto sued Look magazine for libel, asking for more than $12 million. During the legal proceedings, Dick's reporting work fell apart under questioning. Look magazine and Dick's libel mess went on for more than 7 years and ended with $350,000 in damages paid to Alioto.
Shades of the future Fox News Dominion lawsuit.
But in a dazzling display of mediocre white man failing up, Dick Carlson managed to eventually be named Director of Voice for America, and eventually the CEO of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, among other media properties.
Mediocre excellence, those were the days.
2 years after Tucker was born, his mom gave birth to a younger brother named Buckley. Yes, that's Tucker's little brother's real name. His parents must have been fans of the sound of the syllable uck. Buckley eventually grew up to be a Republican communications consultant.
Tucks and Bucks, the kind of American family that Tucker would rail against as part of the elite establishment if it wasn't his own immediate family.
Carlson's gilded childhood didn't last long. His parents ran into marital problems, and his dad was granted sole custody of the boys when they divorced. His silly rich mother ran off to France, and Tucker reportedly never saw her again.
And here we have, folks, what I'm sure Tucker credits as his misogyny origin story.
Around this time, Tucker's dad moved them to La Jolla, San Diego, where their house overlooked the La Jolla Beach and Tennis Club.
La Jolla's fancy.
Yeah, the reason I keep bringing up what fancy boys Tucker and Buckley were is that Tucker, like a lot of Republicans who have made millions spewing far-right-wing nonsense, likes to pretend he had some sort of hard-scrabble or even average past. Most middle-class kids don't grow up with a view of a tennis club.
Now, in his defense, Erin, it feels like a lot of politicians practice Tuckerism. Like, look at me, I'm like you, I can split wood, wear a barn jacket, know the price of milk, you can trust me. But LOL, I was raised with silver spoons, pate, and tennis clubs.
Yeah, I don't think Tucker knows the price of milk. Luckily, before the family had to sink deeper into the lower upper crust, Dick Carlson found another heiress to marry. This time it was twice married, twice divorced, Patricia Swanson, of the frozen fish stick Swansons. Patricia would go on to adopt Tucker and Buckley and then later send Tucker to boarding school in Switzerland. Tucker would later say he was, quote, kicked out and sent instead to another boarding school in Rhode Island, where he met his future wife, the daughter of the headmaster.
Daughters of privilege are catnip to the Carlson men.
Despite having all the connections and resources in the world, Tucker could not manage to get into a college most people have ever heard of. While an undergraduate, he was a member of the Dan White Society, which was named after the man who assassinated San Francisco Mayor George Moscone and the gay activist Harvey Milk.
I mean, we're all kind of shitheads in college, but what kind of person would join a group named after somebody most famous for killing a gay activist?
Yeah, young Tuck showed promise as a magazine writer, making the rounds through New York and D.C. media and writing noteworthy pieces on George W. Bush, the war in Iraq, and Libya. In 2000, he won a CNN contract, and in 2001, he was made co-host of the show Crossfire. Back then, he was kind of thought of as a cool young Republican, respected by the intellectual class because he was more welcome at Beltway parties than the turnip truck flyover Republicans who were vandalizing abortion clinics and joining militias at the time. Eventually, he'd make a career cozying up to those people, but not quite yet.
So, to give people a sense of what Crossfire was, first, the word shrill comes to mind to accurately describe the cast of mostly white men, though Geraldine Ferraro and Mary Matlin did have stints on Crossfire. But these men represented the left and the right, and they debated nightly.
Of course, that led to the first of Tucker's many public spankings under the steady but stern hand of Jon Stewart. I am so sorry for that imagery. In a now infamous 2004 Crossfire appearance that to this day some speculate led to the show's cancellation.
To do a debate would be great, but that's like saying pro wrestling is a show about athletic competition.
I think you're a good comedian. I think your lectures are boring. Let me ask you a question on the news.
Now, this is theater. I mean, it's obvious. How old are you?
35.
And you wear a bow tie.
Yeah, I do. I do.
So this is...
No, I know. You're right. No, let me just go. No, come on.
And listen, I'm not suggesting that you're not a smart guy, because those are not easy to tie. But the thing is that you're doing theater when you should be doing debate, which would be great.
No, it's just
not honest. What you do is not honest. What you do is partisan hackery. And I'll tell you why I know it.
You have John Kerry on your show, and you sniff his throne, and you're accusing us of partisan hackery?
Absolutely.
You've got to be kidding, man.
You're on CNN. The show that leads into me is puppets making crank phone calls. What is wrong with you?
As the hosts were signing off later, Stewart would call Tucker a dick. As someone who watched this as a young college kid at the time, gotta say this moment holds up.
I do think you're more fun on your show. Just my opinion.
But
next, Jon Stewart goes one-on-one with his fans.
You're as big a dick on your show as you are on any show.
Looking back now, this seems to be, as they say, Tucker's villain origin story. A few months later, in January 2005, CNN announced they were setting Tucker free to practice his signature just sniffed a fart and is confused about where it came from face on another network.
Something I didn't know, or maybe just didn't remember because it's not really that important, was that Tucker Carlson had a short-lived show on PBS.
Yeah. At the same time he was hosting Crossfire, he was hosting a show called Tucker Carlson Unfiltered on the same network that brought you Sesame Street. Funny enough, Tucker's time at PBS would come full circle in 2020 when he used his Fox News platform to pick a fight with Elmo.
Across the country, people of color, especially in the black community, are being treated unfairly because of how they look.
Children's show. Got that, Bobby? America is a very bad place, and it's your fault. So no matter what happens, no matter what they do to you when you grow up, you have no right to complain. That's the message, and it starts very young.
That was his takeaway?
Erin, at first I was confused about Tucker's PBS show too, but then I remembered his dad was CEO of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting back in the mid-1990s. So Daddy wasn't the boss when Tucker got his show, but it couldn't have hurt Lil Nepo baby.
Yes. Tucker grew up so privileged that I bet his dad's friends still refer to him as a fine young man. Even though he's currently old enough for the senior discount at Denny's.
Tucker eventually turned down a contract renewal at PBS in 2005, saying it was because he wanted to focus on his new MSNBC show and also because he hated government spending.
Over at MSNBC, Tucker hosted a forgettable panel show that was canceled in 2008 due to the fact that nobody watched it due to the fact that it sucked. In the meantime, he was on season 3 of Dancing with the Stars in 2006, where he was the first contestant eliminated after dancing the cha-cha in a manner most expected. I apologize in advance for this, Alyssa.
My name is Tucker Carlson. I'm a journalist. When I first got the call about doing this, I thought, they must be calling the wrong guy. My dance experience consists of drinking too much at a couple rehearsal dinners. I have total confidence. I think of myself as a cha-cha master.
On the ground, world, are you ready for a brand new beat? Dancing in Chicago.
All the problems started as soon as you stood up. I'm sorry, that was dreadful.
5.
4. An awful mess. 3.
ABC's hair and makeup team clearly enjoyed giving Tucker the Princess Di hairdo for his intro video.
Yeah, whenever I witness a man who is that bad at dancing, I cannot help but feel terrible for his wife. Tucker stuck around MSNBC as a sort of showless contributor for a while before he was offered a Fox News contract in 2009.
Failing up just like Dad.
Tucker was 2/3 of the way to the impressive achievement of having shows canceled by all three major cable news networks, a.k.a. the Pundit Triathlon, the Hack EGOT, if you will. But he'd find a home at Fox News in 2009, and the network turned out to be a perfect chrysalis into which Tucker could, like a fat libertarian caterpillar, completely liquefy himself and emerge transformed into a fringe lunatic butterfly with wings festooned with Confederate flags and the Stormfront logo.
Fox News of the Obama years, the milkweed field of the far-right agita.
Maybe that's giving Roger Ailes too much credit.
And not long after, Tucker launched the Daily Caller, a right-leaning website that got most of its funding from a crusty old dickwad named Foster Freeze.
The pride and or shame of Rice Lake, Wisconsin, my neck of the woods, a right-wing lunatic who once gave $250 million to Rick Santorum's failed 2012 presidential campaign, and also once told Andrea Mitchell that the best birth control was a woman putting an aspirin pill between her knees. What a creep.
Back in my days, they used bare aspirin for contraceptives. The gals put it between their knees, and it wasn't that costly.
It's okay, he's dead now. Anyway, media critic Jack Schaefer once called the Daily Caller's investigative work, quote, bad journalism and lame propaganda. Visitors to the Daily Caller website could peruse such sections as teacher sex, which were just stories about female teachers having sex with male students. It also goosed its traffic numbers by featuring slideshows of model Kate Upton.
The Caller got things wrong with fair regularity, which kind of undermines the whole point of a news website. And sometimes when called out for being wrong, they would refuse to issue corrections. Once they published an article claiming to have a nude selfie of Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, when they had no such photo and were in fact whoring for clicks. The Caller also got caught allegedly paying some Dominican woman to say that she'd had sex with New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez for a story they published just days before the 2012 elections.
See, that's like the one thing that now embattled New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez definitely didn't do. There are so many other things you could have written about him doing.
A litany.
And it was at the Caller that Tucker first got met with approval for hating immigrants. He met then Hill staffer and future Trump aide Stephen Miller in 2013, and Miller would feed Carlson tips and stories for the site's anti-immigration beat, according to a New York Times profile. And the staff of the Daily Caller was starting to attract a specific, shall we say, ilk. Over the years, several members of the staff were outed for contributing to white nationalist publications under pseudonyms, associating with and promoting outwardly racist and anti-Semitic ideas, and attending alt-right rallies in their free time.
Like many exhausting and or sophomoric people, Tucker seemed to think that making people mad was a sign he was doing the right thing.
A real pioneer in owning the libs. Over the next several years, Tucker floated around Fox as a contributor, once falling asleep on a 2013 episode of Fox and Friends.
He's really asleep. I don't think we're being good co-hosts right now.
Can you get a shot on?
But he finally got his big break in 2016 when Tucker Carlson Tonight premiered, not long after Donald Trump's election night victory. Funny enough, Tucker may have had the early rumblings of the Me Too movement to thank for his shot at primetime. Former Fox chief Roger Ailes never really found Tucker to be all that special, but just a few months before the 2016 election, Ailes had been forced out at Fox over credible allegations he was a malignant pervert to the women who worked for him. With Ailes out, Tucker got his shot because the Murdoch family liked him. And then Tucker's show moved from the 9 p.m. slot to the coveted 8 p.m. slot thanks to the outing of another Fox News sex pest, Bill O'Reilly, whose eponymous show was canceled after he too had to deal with a bevy of sexual harassment lawsuits and a mass flight of advertisers. Wow, Tucker. Feminists have helped you out so much over the years, and have we ever gotten a thank you?
Rude.
Tucker Carlson found success by telling the worst human beings in America exactly what they wanted to hear, that their aggrieved entitlement was justified, that immigrants were coming here to outbreed and replace white people, that left-wing woketopians were turning once great American cities to shit. Everything was scary. Best stay in your basement, locked up with your guns and your Fox News on the big screen, where Tucker Carlson, middle-aged boy king of frozen seafood and also somehow understander of the plight of the average American, would explain to you how to best proceed from the safety of your red state exurb.
Boy king of frozen seafood is the best description of him that has ever been made in the history of America.
Thank you so much.
Just had to say it here first.
Turns out an apple a day doesn't cut it. To be healthy, we need 5 cups of fruits and vegetables every day. That's 35 cups a week. Are there even that many vegetables? That's why I started taking Field of Greens by Brickhouse Nutrition. Field of Greens is whole, organic fruits and vegetables, real food, not extracts. Each fruit and vegetable in Field of Greens was medically chosen for a specific health benefit. Some support vital organs like heart, liver, and kidneys, while others give your metabolism and immune system a boost. I'm so busy and I don't always eat like I should. The Powerhouse blend in Field of Greens fills the gap, so I stay energetic, focused, and healthy. And if you don't feel the incredible difference like I did, you can return it for a full refund. Let me get you started with 15% off and free shipping. Visit fieldofgreens.com and use promo code TFG. That's promo code TFG at fieldofgreens.com.
Tucker Carlson's Fox News tenure was somehow both stupid and evil, but at least he kept it exciting with the occasional random freak out about candy mascots becoming less fuckable, gender-neutral gingerbread men, and the nationwide epidemic of babies.
M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing. When you're totally turned off, we've achieved equity. They've won.
They just don't like women. Really? Who hates women? I've never met anyone who hates women.
Not yet.
Most men actually really like women.
That's how
So
the
much
world
of this
would be
you
different
don't
if it
know.
weren't for
You
humans.
pretend that you know, but you don't know, and you
gotta
bully
disagree
people
with you,
who
sir.
ask
I
you
really
questions.
have to disagree with you. I spent a lot of time with this topic.
I'm open-minded. You are not. Has Putin ever called me a racist? Has he shipped every middle-class job in my town to Russia? Does he eat dogs? These are fair questions, and the answer to all of them is no.
What?
If you were to assemble a list, where would white supremacy be on the list? Right up there with Russia, probably. White supremacy, that's the problem. This is a hoax.
Maybe the orange M&M is a secret sexist himself. Maybe he liked the sexy boots. We're going to let NPR get to the bottom of that.
Oh my God.
Who attacks Bill Nye Science Guy?
For Mr. Rogers' sake, I'm glad that they never encountered each other so that Tucker could challenge him to like an MMA match.
I was just going to say that.
From M&Ms to statues of slave owners, no American alive is hornier for imaginary and inanimate objects than Tucker Carlson. He is so rock hard for statues that when Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth called for a national dialogue on removing statues honoring slaveholders, he called her a moron and a coward. He characterized her military service as, quote, serving with the Illinois National Guard.
Fact check. Tammy Duckworth lost both of her legs while serving in Iraq.
Ugh. Tucker Carlson tonight featured so many stories delivered with the finesse of a frat paddle, and given Tucker's delight in making people mad, like a bratty child who happens to be in his 50s, we're not going to repeat too many of them here. Some of them, like his parroting of the Great Replacement theory and playing footsie with other far-right paranoid fantasies, could be downright dangerous. But minimizing the military service of a double amputee Purple Heart veteran turned U.S. Senator was particularly embarrassing for him, a guy who gives off the impression that he checks with the server first to make sure the hummus isn't too spicy.
Meanwhile, Tuck continued to be awfully cozy with people who palled around with the white nationalists, including his longtime head writer, Blake Neff, who resigned after CNN's Oliver Darcy exposed Neff's long and prolific history of posting racist and sexist garbage online, anonymously, of course.
But Tucker Carlson has never met anybody who hates women.
Ever?
Yeah, no, never. Fox News, where the bravery is as authentic as the spray tans. And speaking of phonies, we know Tucker had an increasingly strained relationship with the truth throughout his career. Lies and exaggerations got him more attention, and attention begets attention. And that worked out great for him.
But sometimes it didn't. In 2018, for example, a group called Smash Racism DC protested outside of Carlson's house, spray painting his driveway and generally causing a disturbance. Carlson claimed that one of the protesters cracked his door, except that last thing didn't happen, according to both the police and eyewitnesses.
In 2020, Tucker's awkward cha-cha with facts almost landed him in trouble as he was sued for slander for accusing former Playboy model Karen McDougal of extorting Donald Trump. During that trial, Fox News' lawyers argued that Carlson did not slander McDougal, despite claiming that false statements were, quote, undisputed fact. Because Tucker Carlson does not state actual facts, but was instead engaging in exaggeration and, quote, non-literal commentary. Basically, Fox's lawyers claimed that any viewer of Tucker Carlson Tonight should know that Tucker Carlson is full of shit.
I guess, Erin, that Fox non-literal commentary doesn't fit as neatly into a square logo as Fox News.
If they could befriend some graphic designers, I bet they could make it happen. What's even crazier is that after Fox News' lawyers argued that what Tucker Carlson was doing was not in fact news or even facts, a judge agreed.
But of course, Tucker's most ardent fans weren't paying attention to whether or not his own employer took him seriously as a journalist. Again, they were being told what they wanted to hear. Tucker was spoon-feeding them a version of reality that went down nice and easy. After all that posturing, it turned out that Tucker didn't even like Donald Trump that much. In text messages eventually revealed through discovery in the Dominion Voting System's 2023 libel lawsuit against Fox News, Tucker didn't hold back about Trump. Quote, I hate him passionately, he texted. On January 4th, 2021, Carlson texted somebody that, quote, we are very, very close to being able to ignore Trump most nights. I truly can't wait.
Wow. For the first time in my life, I agree with Tucker Carlson. While privately hating Trump and eagerly awaiting his exit from politics, public-facing Tucker was very much on the side of the January 6th rioters and insurrectionists. On his show, he accused the FBI of orchestrating the attack as a false flag operation. He later doubled down with a 3-part straight-to-streaming documentary series called Patriot Purge. Nobody serious thought it was good. On Friday, April 21st, 2023, Tucker Carlson signed off his nightly show like it was a regular Friday night, but it would turn out to be his last. The following Monday, Fox News announced they'd parted ways with old Tucky without giving a reason. Tucker himself had reportedly learned of the news 10 minutes before the rest of us found out.
Very cold, extremely funny.
Extremely funny. Theories about what was really behind the dismissal were rampant. Some believed that it was due to a lawsuit a former employee had filed against the show in March, alleging an environment of sexism and anti-Semitism behind the scenes. In May 2023, Media Matters got hold of some pretty incriminating recordings of Carlson.
Iraq is a crappy place filled with a bunch of, semi-literate primitive monkeys.
But I just have zero sympathy for them or their culture, a culture where people just don't use toilet paper or forks. I'm a bigot, okay? I'm a bigot. I don't like Islamic extremists. Like, if you are really heavily into Islam, I'm sorry, I don't care for you that much. And I don't care what that sounds like. You can call me a racist. You can call me whatever the fuck you want.
And we shall call him a racist.
This isn't anything that I can't hear in a bar in rural northern Wisconsin. Why are you getting paid $1 bajillion to say it?
Actually, he's not in prison for that. Warren Jeffs didn't marry underage girls.
No, he's in prison for facilitation of child rape.
Whatever the hell that means.
That means
he's in prison because he's weird and unpopular, and he has a different lifestyle that other people find creepy.
No, he's an accessory to the rape of children. That is a felony, and a serious one at that.
Tucker has at least one daughter, and at one point he got into an altercation in a bar over his daughter, and he threw wine in somebody's face. So it's really interesting to see the humanity that he's willing to extend to somebody else's daughter. Meanwhile, Tucker was promising his fans that he had something big planned. And that something big turned out to be a show on Elon Musk's Twitter, the digital media equivalent of a half-abandoned flea market that only sells Klan robes and prepaid phone cards. His first episode was 10 minutes long. In it, Tucker claimed that the real cause of 9/11 was classified and that the U.S. government had recovered an alien spaceship and an actual space alien. And maybe I should have watched this episode.
Wow.
It sounds very interesting. And he interviewed an unwell-seeming man who claimed that he'd once had a crack cocaine-fueled night of sex with Barack Obama.
But after a flaccid rollout, it turns out that Elon Musk's Twitter didn't have the necessary technology for Tucker to do what he wanted to, even with the power of crack. And so he tucked off and started his own streaming network.
Oh, gosh, Alyssa, I guess I'm going to have to finally delete Peacock to make room for whatever Tucker's streaming service is called. The only noteworthy thing Tucker has done since the launch is to travel to Russia to marvel at the coin-operated shopping carts and have Vladimir Putin do absolute donuts across the smooth parking lot that is Tucker's brain.
The good thing about this interview is that it gave Jon Stewart, back home at The Daily Show after several years away, another chance to dunk on his old Crossfire sparring buddy.
Here's a question for you, Alyssa. Given all we know, do we think Tucker Carlson actually believes his own bullshit? Is he high on his own supply?
Erin, Tucker actually is his own bullshit. I do think he hates immigrants and people who look differently or live differently than him. And if the fundamental premise of the GOP today is say whatever you have to scare voters into voting for you, or in his case, into tuning in, he's living it. That is fundamentally who he is. Maybe Tucker started out as a critical thinking, elite, skeptical contrarian who just happened to see himself as a member of the Beltway elite, but he's been pretending to be a friend of racists and xenophobes and sexists and oath keepers and Marjorie Taylor Greens. I think he believes that if there's ever a populist uprising, because he spent so many years entertaining their victimhood kabuki, the unwashed masses will crown him their king and that he'd deserve it.
Okay, I'm just going to play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
Let's say no, he doesn't believe his own bullshit. He is the final boss of political cynicism, exactly what Jon Stewart said he was back in 2004. He is not a serious man. He is a professional wrestler. He loves playing the heel, sneering at the crowd, soaking in their booze. At the end of the night, he takes off his burnt tangerine makeup and goes home and watches House of the Dragon with his wife like a normal person. The text of him talking shit about Trump and his bosses at Fox show that behind closed doors, he's a totally different person than he is in public. Ben Smith reported in 2021 that Carlson was an important source for many authors who wrote Trump-critical books. I think he's been leading a double life for so long that he's convinced himself that he can be all these mutually exclusive things at once. I think he thinks he's outsmarted everybody. But perhaps the best distillation of whether Tucker Carlson is a real guy or an SEO-optimized pastiche of recycled white nationalist talking points comes from baby Tucker.
Bill O'Reilly's success is built on the perception that he really is who he claims to be. If he ever gets caught out of character, it's over.
That's right. I say before that, Bill O'Reilly's really talented. He's more talented than I am. He's got a lot more viewers than I do. He's a better communicator than I am. But I think there's kind of a deep phoniness at the center of his shtick. And again, as I say, the shtick is sort of built on this perception that he is the character he plays. He is every man, this kind of, he's not right-wing, he's a populist. This kind of Irish Catholic populist fighting for you against the powers that be. And that's great as a shtick, but I'm just saying the moment that it's revealed not to be true, it's over.
Well, Tucker, I guess you're a better communicator than me because that summed it up. Alyssa, on a scale of 1 to 5 weasels, where does he rank?
Erin, I'm going to give Tucker 3 weasels. I'm going to give him 3 weasels because he's just trying too hard. I feel like Stephen Miller really lives and breathes his isms, but Tucker's just trying to find the ism that gets the most ratings. So I'm not going to give him the honor of 5 weasels. He's 3 weasels only for me. What about you?
I give him 3 weasels at the moment. I think there was a time earlier in his career where I would give him more weasels than 3 because he would have been more dangerous. But at this point, he just kind of seems like he's yelling into an echo chamber, which isn't really as dangerous as him yelling to people that could possibly be converted. But we'll see, Tucker. Maybe there's another cable network you can get your show canceled off of. And that's all the time we have for this edition of This Fucking Guy. If you want to keep as many little insurrectionist Tuckers as possible out of Congress, get involved in the 2024 election now by heading to votesaveamerica.org.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. You know the drill. And please let us know in comments down below who our next fucking guy should be.